Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry I'm late. My computer just blew up. It didn't like me today. I basically was all ready to go. I just said to Tor, bless her, I was all ready to go, and then my computer just went black. And it was 1 minute to 7:30, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's really good timing. So we got there in the end. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you, Tor, because we were exchanging some voice notes earlier, so she was helping me. I was like, you might need to start the meeting. Okay, so I think we have most people here. I think there might be one. There might be one just joining in a few minutes' time. But I'm going to just kick us off, as I do normally with these things, is just with a bit of a arrival meditation, if that's okay, just because I know what it's like in the sense of us all feeling like we're rushing here from cooking the dinner or getting through the door or whatever it is. And then we're kind of going to get into a little bit around how that week around Childhood Essence felt, how easy or hard it was to get back into the rhythm with that, because I think it either does come quite naturally and quite easily, or it's a bit harder to glean. And we're actually going to spend quite a bit of time just holding the space of sitting in that feeling of actually what was present there. But this guided meditation today is another invitation to connect to that kind of that inner child and the inner wisdom as well. So hopefully that it might be that some things pop up from this meditation as well. Okay, so get comfy, as I always say with the beginning of these. Cameras off, feel free to get your kind of head up against a pillow, or kind of have your legs crossed, or even lie on the floor. It's an invitation to just get completely comfortable. Okay, so as you know, you've been diving into a little bit of work around Childhood Essence this week. So I just want to start off by saying, this does have it shouldn't look and feel a certain way. This journey around connecting back to this Childhood Essence piece is really different for everyone. So be kind to yourself through this process. And actually, if nothing crops up here, maybe that's also fine. And actually, it might be that you want to revisit this module later on in the course as well. Either way is totally fine. So as we always do with our meditations, I just want you to kind of become aware of your body in this space. Start to maybe think about some of those lists and to-do lists, and maybe intentionally leave them at the door today so that you can fully lean into being present here for the next hour. And we're actually going to start by just leaning into our breath for a moment. So maybe just connecting with our breath for the first time today. Maybe noticing, does it feel shallow? Does it feel fast? What's going on there? Is there some anxiety that we've become aware of because it's the first time we've sat still today? And honoring where you're at, not trying to change it at all, but just kind of maybe putting your hand on your chest and just noticing that for a second. And then intentionally just allowing your body to just slow that breathing. As your mind becomes quieter, your breathing will start to slow. And don't worry about those thoughts. They will crop up. They will try and fight their way in. Just notice them and let them float away. Okay, so to begin this process, we're just going to start to bring in and connect to that original essence that we've started thinking a little bit about through our work together so far. So the childhood essence is what we call it. It's the purity and joy that was there from you, from your birth. It was always within you, and it's always within you now. And to begin this process, we're going to start by thinking of a time when you can remember being carefree, happy, spontaneous, and innocent. So that's where I want you to spend just the first few moments of this meditation. And if you don't have a clear memory of this, that's okay and completely normal. Maybe you think back to that photograph that you had a look at over the past week. Is there anything that came to mind when you looked at yourself in that photo? Your imagination is in the eyes and ears of that inner journey, of that inner core essence that was within you at that point and is within you now every single day. Another way to access this image is to think a little bit about who you used to spend time with as a young person, the toys that you used to play with, the activities you used to love, the clothes that you used to wear. So maybe thinking back to some examples of those help you access a memory at this point in time. And remember here, your imagination is your vehicle for self-exploration. So allow yourself to be imaginative, curious. And as you picture that child inside who has never been touched by pain and sorrow, recognize the beauty and purity of that heart and soul. I want you to spend a moment to cherish the soft light that surrounds this precious child who represents who you are deep, deep down inside. Maybe you notice the wide-eyed innocence in the child's big open eyes. And regardless of who you are or how you currently see yourself, you were once that vulnerable child, and it is still alive inside you every single day. We're going to open our hearts in this moment just to receive the gift of this natural joy, beauty, and innocence from within. This child offers you love, creativity, spontaneous expression. All of these things are naturally and rightfully yours. It may be hard for you to fully see and allow this image, but keep coming back to this place until you finally connect with this wonderfully powerful image. And again, you might want to kind of practice this. I can read this through and create another meditation for you guys. And again, it's something that with time will become easier and easier. So thinking a little bit back to that moment, that picture, whatever it is, looking into that young person's child's eyes, consider that you're catching a glimpse of your own magnificence, beauty, and grace here. Allow the comforting, soothing feelings of peace to emerge from within the core of who you are. And in time, the more you do this, the more you will notice yourself becoming more spontaneously joyful, creative, and loving in your everyday life. Watch for and expect the signs that you're becoming more and more comfortable in your own skin, more and more at peace in the depths of your soul. And as we say with this work, you're just remembering. You're not kind of almost creating a new version of yourself. You're reconnecting, you're unlearning, you're remembering the person that you've always been. And there's some really, really kind of beautiful tips here in the Childhood Essence module. Okay, so just make a note of anything you want to bring back into the room. It might be that you just want to, when you open your eyes, make a few notes of anything that's cropped up. And then slowly but surely, maybe just start to move those shoulders, wiggle those fingers and those toes. And when you're ready, I want you to come back into the room. It suddenly got very dark in my room, so I just turned the lights on. I was sitting here in the dark then. Okay, everyone. How did that feel to arrive and connect? Anyone want to just share anything? I'm going to guide you through some prompts around some of this work, but anything, sorry, Nala's doing some strange things today. Anything anyone want to share from that? Anything that cropped up memory-wise that people want to share with the group? And if not, that's fine too.
I think it was good to have seen the photos beforehand, brought a different kind of edge to it. When you're speaking about the child, I was thinking, do you know what? This time a couple of weeks ago, probably wouldn't have been able to picture it, but actually seeing that physical image brought a lot more sort of than I thought I knew. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes really hard to remember, isn't it? And I think, that's why thinking about that favorite toy or the favorite book or the favorite outfit can really help, because actually sometimes it can be quite hard to reconnect with, with those specific memories, but they will kind of come out. You're almost opening Pandora's box and they'll kind of come out through this process. But a big part of this is also asking your family and friends what you were like as children, right? Because actually they might say one word, they might say energetic, they might say playful. And actually that might flood back kind of all these memories about, oh my God, I used to love that crazy thing. Or, so actually it's about just being open to some of this awareness. And we don't spend too long here because, this is trauma-informed work a lot of the time. So if you kind of are going back and processing kind of childhood memories, you spend a lot of time here with therapy and counselling. But it's important for us to kind of look in with that positive gaze around remembering some true qualities that maybe we've lost along the way. And that's why we kind of start our journey with looking back, right? Because actually some of it is there's some juicy content there that maybe we don't want to completely ignore through this process. Okay, so we're just going to spend a bit of time. We will go into some groups today and kind of dive into how that letter felt, because that's, for a lot of us, that might be the first time we've spent time there. And I know you've all had different kind of experiences with how that went through the week. But I want us to start with one, all going round and sharing one word that sums up our essence. And maybe that's from your picture. Maybe you just saw the picture and you're like, oh, it's just that word comes to mind. Or maybe it's a word that someone else gave you, that kind of almost was through their lens. So yeah, if you had to sum up that essence in one word. So my word would be big, right? Because I was always too much for everyone. And it was about, no, just get down off the stage and wear something that's not multicolors, because that was obviously my bigness, as a child. So that's one word that I'd sum up. Laura, will you jump in next for me? What would you say your word is?
I would say curious.
Oh, amazing. And that's the thing, it's such a nice invitation to bring that back, isn't it? Because how often as adults do we get permission to be curious, right? It doesn't always feel available to us. So again, that's so juicy there. Georgina.
Mine was passionate, especially very passionate about nature and the nature that I grew up in and around.
Amazing. I love that. And how did it feel with that picture as well? Was that the first word that came to mind, or was that more kind of speaking to relatives that word came up, or both?
That was for me, that was looking at that picture and the fact that I was holding a fish in my hand, and I'm remembering so much about the fact that I always wanted to be connected with nature and what was going on around me.
Oh, it's so fascinating, isn't it? And again, it'd be interesting to know now, with that kind of awareness, how much that tool of nature can be used moving forward in your journey, through the journey within, but wider, because actually there's probably a natural resonance there, that nature gives you energy that brings you back to that authentic self. So let's just kind of park that almost and become aware of it when we're then moving forward, because it's probably quite an important part. Catherine, what about you?
So I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. The word that kept coming up was freedom, but when I was looking through my photos to find the me, it was definitely joy. I seem to get such joy from little things, from being quite young. This picture of me opening a present, and it was definitely about joy. Being thrilled by life.
I get a sense of simplicity there as well, just the joy in the simple things as well, and uncomplicated life as well in lots of ways. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Gemma, what about you?
I think mine is imaginative, because I had such a vivid imagination. I remember some of my favorite memories where, I genuinely was a Disney princess living in a castle, speaking to the squirrels, speaking to the rabbits.
You were just like directing the whole show.
I remember once I literally wouldn't answer to the name Gemma, only Aurora, because I was so obsessed with Sleeping Beauty. I wouldn't answer to anything else. And I would literally spend hours and hours and hours in the living room on my own in my castle.
Wow.
So imaginative.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? I was the same. I was obsessed with Aladdin, and I basically always was singing A Whole New World, the song. And I had my sister, and she was younger than me, unfortunately, and I made her always, I was obviously always Jasmine, and she was Aladdin, and she never got to be Jasmine. But it's funny how when I'm writing my book this year, the title is going to be A Whole New World, because actually that phrase of that song's always been really important. I was always creating almost this other world, because I think deep down as a child, I knew that there were some elements of like not accepting like who I was and the too muchness of that. So almost like looking back, when I realized that in therapy, I was thinking, wow, I was creating that whole new world, like from quite a young age, actually. So it's a really nice one through fairy tales and which ones we loved and why, what was it about them that gave us that feeling of hope and brought that light out in us as well? Because that's a really nice access point, you might not remember, but again, starting to look back to some of those things you just loved and you watched on repeat, and really understanding what was it about that you loved, because actually these are all really, really awesome cues. Fab. What about you, Tor?
So I'm gonna go for 2 words, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I've got my word from looking at all those photos and speaking to family. The decided word is cheeky.
Oh, I love it.
And then in terms of like what other people have been saying to me, I don't know if I can link it up with the pictures at all, but apparently I was very generous, overly generous. I give away all my stuff.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I don't. I wish I'd eaten those sweets.
It's really interesting, isn't it? It comes back to balance, doesn't it? Yeah. Like anything almost that you learn to be kind of, almost that's something, again, that's really interesting, that you're almost giving so much. And again, like anything, it's being really interesting. Like, I mean, that was such a loving gift that you obviously were going to give, but actually as a child, we don't know those boundaries about when one begins and one ends, and when one's negative and positive, and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. My dad would actually said to me, it was frustrating how much I would just give away rather than just like eating it or keeping it. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And what about you, Helen?
So I actually struggled quite a lot with this.
Okay.
I had to inquire about words, and in a way I'm slightly disappointed in the word I got given.
Okay. You don't have to take it on, right? Because what I will say in other people's words is like, it's their story. So actually it's their perspective.
I think it's probably fair, but also it's probably just hoping for a bit more, but I was given measured.
Okay. Considered, measured. But again, that's really important though, in lots of senses, like to kind of have that awareness and kind of understand, like, and have a view, and quite a grounded view of the world. So actually, for me, that's quite an important one, especially as becoming a well-being girl, Helen, in terms of actually holding space as well. I don't know, it just feels like that word's quite an important one. So maybe it's not all negative. It's really interesting to understand sometimes what that means or brings up in you, because actually my perspective of that word is actually there's a lot of positive things that come from that too.
I mean, I was given a few others, but they all kind of resulted in the same thing, like observant, quiet.
But observant, right? It's all the things you need to be able to, that's a skill that maybe you've had from a young age that enables you to step back and support others too. So that's really interesting to unwind a bit more through our stuff we're doing through A Whole New World as well. Okay, amazing. That sounds good. We're going to go into some breakout rooms because we didn't spend much time kind of one-on-one, and a big part of this journey, as you know, is the relationship with each other. I've added another layer of support for you guys through this container, which is the alumni. So I've given you all, I think, Catherine, you're the only one I've not sent the email to yet because it's on my list to do, but most people have been buddied up with another alumni graduate, and the idea is that if you've got anything that you kind of struggle with throughout the program, they are all on hand, and they've pretty much basically said, please give my email. They actually came to me and offered their support to you guys because they loved it so much and they actually wanted to do more and stay more involved, which I love. So you've almost got another layer of support in terms of something's kind of like you're struggling with, you've got someone else you can kind of ask with a different perspective there as well. But we're going to spend a bit of time just discussing with one other how it felt to kind of write that letter for the first time, because actually it might be that a lot of you did write this for the first time and it brought up kind of some positive and negative things, but just giving that a bit of space to kind of honor some of those feelings, whether they are good or bad. It's really important part of the process, because although we say look at this through a positive lens, there might be stuff that comes up that you still want to give air to and honor. And like we say with anything, it's emotion, and actually we need to kind of let it out, and give it space and honor it, because actually letting go of some of that allows then the new stuff to come in as well. So with the breakouts, I always let the universe decide. So you get put with whoever you get put with, and I always think there's a reason why. So I'm going to pop you into some groups for kind of 5 or so minutes, not going to stay here too long, but feel free to just share how that experience felt. If you've not got to it, there might be a reason why, so maybe kind of you might explain why you've not got to it yet, and that's totally fine as well. But it's also a nice chance for you to kind of get to know each other a little bit more as well. Okay, so let's do this. So I think that should all give you an invite now. Off you go when you're ready, and I'm going to dip in and out.
Meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So I hope it helped by just having a bit of time with one other person just to understand how someone else felt around this process. Lots of nodding. 'Cause I think, again, a lot of like what your mind will try and do with this process is, like we spoke about it with Helen earlier, is almost like your mind will be telling you you're doing it all wrong. Your mind will be telling you like, why haven't you remembered yet? You know, maybe this isn't something I can do because these memories aren't coming back. Your mind will be playing those tricks on you. And that narrative is totally normal because you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And there's something here about the unknown, right? So that narrative all week, the fact that that was present in the back of your mind, like, is it too late to maybe just not do it? You know, is totally normal, you know. And actually for you guys to understand that this is big, the fact that we're going to start by looking back, you know, even though we're trying to move forward, there's a bit of uncomfortableness that comes from that. I want to we're going to hold a bit of space around a word that your inner child wants to gift to you through the Journey Within program next. But does anyone want to share anything that cropped up just that may help others in terms of your conversations with each other just now?
I was just going to say, it was really nice to have like a one-to-one, because I said I find it quite awkward with Zoom. Sometimes I never know when to speak.
Yeah,
I know. You get like everyone starts talking and then like it's just a bit, it's easier to do it face to face, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, I know it can take a little bit of getting used to, and I think more and more we will be using group work and using kind of peer-to-peer and giving you almost like stuff to go and work off, you know, in the weeks that you're not then on the call, so that you can kind of develop those personal relationships.
Yeah,
that's really important. And you guys, what I try to do every cohort is actually get you together at least once in person. So I'm, as you know, doing my yoga teacher training. So it might be that in June at the end of the course, at least we can do some kind of aerial yoga session or something together where we have a drink, but we also like have, you know, have a physical, you know, touch point as well, because I think that is really important. And Kelly, you know, you've heard a little bit from Kelly Law in terms of the like last cohort, like they've got a WhatsApp group, they're still kind of in touch, and you know, that's absolutely doesn't have to end just because the program comes to an end as well. So we're building kind of friendships for life here, and this doesn't have to just be through that 12 weeks. Okay, so yeah, anything that comes to mind. So thinking a little bit about that younger self, you know, if actually they could see you now, you know, me being 33 going into kind of this new journey, because every time we do a Journey Within, we all do this journey again. Me and Lizzie, we go through it again and we kind of bring it up and we learn more, right? Every time you're doing like another layer of that process. And I think for me, my word from my kind of younger self would be trust. I come back to that quite a lot all of the time, because trust is the opposite of control, right? Of actually, like, if we're loosening control, then actually trust is the opposite of like, I don't quite know where we're going with this. We were talking about this earlier with the wellbeing girls. It's really good that they don't know where they're going, because actually that's where the magic can happen. If we're always trying to control what's coming next, then we miss out on so much beauty. So for me, that's the word. And I think it's really nice to just gift this to yourself at the beginning of a new journey. Anything that comes to mind for you, Gemma? I'm going to go for you first. Anything that comes to mind, that kind of word that your younger self would gift to Gemma today that will guide her through the program and keep her honored in that?
I really like trust as well. I think I would just slightly adapt it to self-trust.
Yeah.
That, you know, it does, yeah, your voice is welcome, you know. What you have to share is valuable.
Wow.
And you don't have to prove yourself to anybody, because people want to hear what you've got to share.
you know, and actually for me, something that comes up really strongly with my intuition there is like, you're enough, because actually a lot of the beliefs that lead to some of this self-sabotaging behavior often is rooted in a belief, and often it's I am not enough. So I am not enough as a belief is the most common belief that
and a lot that came up for me when writing that letter was, you know, choose yourself.
Yeah,
you don't need to wait to be chosen by others or validated by others. Just choose yourself, and that will always be the right path.
Wow, I love that. So much wisdom, right? So much wisdom.
No, it's deep though, isn't it? And I have to say, you know, I avoided going really deep. I could have, but I skimmed over.
But I think trust that, because I think there's sometimes reasons why we safeguard, and actually it might not be the right time to go any deeper than that right now, and you'll know when it is, and actually this might not be the right container for it. There'll be lots of other ways you can do that in the future. So again, just trust what feels right. And honestly, for some of the girls that have been through the journey within, some of them skipped this module completely and did it at the end, and actually then went into kind of therapy or counseling or something else. So all of it's an invitation. So please trust how that feels as well. Cool. Laura, what's your word?
Sort of similar to what people have been saying, self-love. So best back yourself, because the thing is, you'll go through life and things happen and you might think, oh, I'm not good enough, or it was my fault. But actually, as long as you trust and give yourself self-love, you're the only one your opinion is the only one that matters.
Yeah. And how, you know, do you think your journey through the journey within will be different with self-love being kind of at the forefront? Does it mean less self-criticism? Does it mean
So I think, because I've had before where I've been like, had this voice in my head, saying the bad voice, but it's almost like ignoring that and questioning it, why is it saying that? Just believe in yourself. And
Brené Brown talks a lot about honoring the fact that you feel uncomfortable and doing it anyway. So it's like, do what Brené Brown says and just like honor, I know that feels uncomfortable, but I'm doing it anyway, right? Honor the feeling, honor the emotion, because actually it's telling us something, it's a safety mechanism, but we're doing it anyway. We're leaning into that because actually that's where learning and growth and, and that opportunity comes from as well.
And I just have to say, that does take a long time to get to that point. It's not easy.
No, exactly. And we can kind of get better at it and then get worse at it.
You can have blips. Yeah.
Georgina, what about you? Any advice?
I don't know if I could give advice, but I'd certainly
advice from your younger self to you today at the beginning.
Oh, right, okay. I was going to say, whoa, that's a bit much. A lot of similar words and offerings from what I've heard already. And for me, it's things like listen, intuition, inner voice, choose you. And I always have had a strong sense of self, but I have abandoned myself so many times that it's almost quite painful. But it's, if I go back to the times, if I reconnect with myself and my inner voice, it was always that was guiding me, that should have guided me, that I should have followed.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? How having the space can just kind of acknowledge that initially, because again, that can bring up a lot of kind of like, I guess, a lot of frustration too. The fact that kind of we've been in that constant tug of war sometimes, but actually honoring that and the fact that actually it's brought us to who we are today is part of it, isn't it? Because actually, it's all part of the kind of the messiness that kind of makes us who we are, and embracing that imperfection sometimes as well. And please make a note of these, because like, honestly, it'd be amazing for us just to use this word through the program when actually you get to the bits that are like, oh, this feels a little bit uncomfortable. It's all part of kind of staying strong, because there'll be times when you're like, oh my God, I'm going to make an excuse. I'm not going to do it anymore. And that's totally fine. Or there won't be. But if there are, you'll have like a bit of armor to put on to be like, no, we've got this, and actually that's what each other is for as well. I won't go around everybody, but the kind of concept there of just an invitation to honor yourself in this journey through the kind of the wise younger self. Does anyone want to share their word or anything that's burning to be shared there in particular? Nope, all good. Okay, fab. I was also just going to say something there because Georgina was talking about intuition. And one of my favorite quotes is, your mind is your calculator. Your mind is the calculator. Your intuition is the compass. I really like that because it came up when you were just speaking then, Georgina, about the mind isn't always like the best voice to follow, because actually there's a safety mechanism there, but your intuition, that's the compass. Sometimes the voices sound different. One's like, ah, the other's calm and soft. So more and more kind of you're tapping into which voice is the one to follow. But, you know, it's all part of the process. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit now about, before I actually get into this, I want to just agree something with you guys around next week, because I know there's a bit of mixed feelings around bank holidays. Do you guys want to continue through bank holidays as in next Monday? You can obviously co-create with Lizzie when she's delivering in May, the same with her, but next week in particular, would people rather carry on through and have another week with me, or do you want to skip a week, which means that you'll be back with Lizzie on the 26th? It's up to you, but I would rather everyone feel comfortable, because I know we've all got lots going on and I don't want people to feel rushed.
I'm away, Lizzie. Oh, sorry, not Lizzie. Natalie.
All away. Anyone else? I've had a few people say that they'd rather skip a week. If that's the kind of consensus, I think that's what we'll do, unless anyone is particularly. Are we all happy with that?
Preference.
Easy going, yeah.
Okay. So it might be then in that case that we'll skip a week, and then you can do the values quiz, and then Lizzie will basically start with you from values, because actually we'd have just done that first week together. Okay, so if I ask the question, what's the difference between beliefs and values? Does anyone kind of want to have a guess? What's the difference with kind of beliefs versus a value? Like how are they different?
I would say that a belief is something that we've been kind of conditioned to feel, perhaps. So you may have been brought up in a very religious family, and then you have a belief, for example, of God. And then a value is something that you probably identify about yourself. And then that's something that kind of drives you in your decision making, but it comes from a self-realization, I suppose, rather than what you've been told or what you're used to growing up.
Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting with beliefs, isn't it? I think one thing that sticks with me when I think about beliefs is something that you've taken on without question. So it's something you almost take on without questioning whether that's yours or not. So religion's a really good example, isn't it, actually, because sometimes that's something that's like a family value set that's very strong, but we don't ever think about a life without that in existence. It's just something that's a given. Anyone else want to share anything? Because you might have some other experiences here around like therapy counselling that might be relevant. I know Debs isn't on the call because she's in Antigua, which is amazing. But anyone else want to share anything around their perspectives of this? Because it is quite an important differentiation. Nope, all good. Okay, so common values beliefs might be, I'm not enough. So that is for people that love hypnotherapy and have an interest in hypnotherapy. I'd look up someone called Marissa Peer. She is amazing, and she does a lot of work around I'm not enough, or I'm enough, or I'm not enough, being the counter of that as being the most common belief system. And actually, she kind of argues with research that most people have some kind of relationship with this belief system that impacts then who they've become in their adult life, because a lot of not enoughness leads to things like people pleasing, right? Because actually there's like something we're filling inside. So actually I'd be arguing that people pleasing wasn't ever like a true authentic state. It's become a compensation behavior for a belief system. Something I'd ask you to think about with this area is actually what your family values were growing up. Like if you want to kind of go back and think about, you know, what you learn about the world through your caregiver's lenses, that's a really interesting one with beliefs. So a big belief of mine was success equals money. I've talked about this a lot, but my dad wasn't at home and he was working all day, every day. So I learned to associate, you know, success with money and happiness. So do you see how that kind of family value generationally impacts then what you take on and then what you become, if that makes sense? So it's really interesting to look at some of that, you know, so your parents may have had quite specific perspectives on certain things that shaped beliefs. Another one that's quite common is big boys don't cry, for example. That's a belief. You know, so there's so many that I think kind of have just a slight impact to kind of some of the conditioning that we kind of then became subject to, you know, and some of those stereotypes that we took on, right? Like women have a lot of stereotypes that we get given, like Georgina was talking about it last week, right? Some of those roles we get given that we're like, that's not mine. But at the time, we're not brave enough to push back on that. We kind of take it on, you know, some of those roles. Whereas a value is chosen. So your values are chosen. They're coming from your conscious awareness. So your values are an opportunity for you to shape who you're becoming. And actually you reprogramming your unconscious belief system by your conscious awareness of your values. So they're kind of counteracting the kind of the bits that we maybe that aren't serving us in terms of moving forward. You know, and I always say, like, it's not going to happen overnight, because there's, for me, I'm 33, so there's 33 years of programming, right? So actually there's like belief systems that are quite deep there that need a bit of time. So for me, this training, being away and stuff, will be a deep reset for me around that value around success and happiness and all of that, in terms of the wounded masculine of drive, go, because that's still in my system a lot. So it will take time. 28 days to form a new habit, 76 for a lifestyle change. So no minimum less than 3 months to kind of get some of the weeds out, you know, and plant new ones. So be kind. It's not going to happen overnight, but values are a real invitation to start updating the software, like getting the new, well, I need the new computer software today because my computer completely died on me. But it's that, you know, it's the kind of conscious awareness of what we're bringing in terms of those programs to support who we're becoming. And yeah, the values are the compass. So there's a lot through the course that talks about setting your compass, and that's what we're doing through values as the first module through the journey within. So you're choosing those values that serve who you're becoming, you know. And actually, me and Helen have spoken about this already. Some of the values that you might pick first might be conditioned values. So they might not actually be yours. They might be like the values you kind of thought that are yours. But the more you do them, the more you'll get to a point where it's your core values and they are yours and they're in alignment with your authentic self. But actually, don't be hard on yourself. You kind of just got to do it for the first time. And actually, you'll get really clear about which ones feel like yours and which don't. Has anyone done any value work before? Yeah. So Catherine, do you want to talk through, because I know we've done it together through Oxford Health a while ago. Do you want to talk? Because I know I remember one of yours, and I'd be interested to like understand how you're getting on with it. Because, you know, I think this is the thing. It's an invitation to kind of just lean in, but it might help because you're probably the only person that's kind of done this once before.
Yeah, I found it so helpful. I think there were lots of words that I didn't realize were my values. So the value quiz was really helpful.
Yes, I'll put that in the chat box now.
And I was so surprised, but almost excited by it. So one of mine was adventure, and it still rings true.
I love how you smile when you say that. Every time Catherine says adventure, she smiles, and I love it so much.
And I suppose I just didn't put it as a value. So it was really helpful for me. There were some really great words in it. It was, I think you had to choose some of them, and I wanted to choose loads of them, but you only had a few you could choose. So it's really great. Just really good. I really enjoyed it. It's really helpful. And you can even make it turn into your screensaver on your phone. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's the best bit.
To remind yourself.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one with value. So Lizzie will take you through, I was going to do this with you, but Lizzie will take you through some kind of other tools of how to mine. They call it mining for your values. So like looking and digging deep for your values. But I like using them and the quiz because actually sometimes we don't know the words yet, if that makes sense. So the words are the kind of hardest bit. So actually by doing the values quiz, you get to kind of see a word and lean into it and feel like, oh, I don't know why I like the sound of that word, but I just like that word. You don't even, that's intuition. You don't know why. Your logical mind's not kind of understanding it, but you're just drawn in. so for me, that happened with peace initially. So I was in that kind of masculine, that kind of drive, go mindset. And more, I was just pulled into peace and that kind of concept of yin yoga and slow, you know. So my intuition was like guiding me there, if that makes sense. But I wouldn't have maybe chosen that word. So it's sometimes a nice way to just kind of like see how your body's responding to those words when they come up on a screen. So that's a really good place to start. And it basically, I always say, don't pick more than 10 on that initial page because you'll be there all night. But if you pick kind of up to 10, it'll give you 5 at the end, but they're not like yours forever and you can never change them again. It's about they're your first 5 and actually they're your working values. And Helen will know this because she's kind of done them once and she felt like, do you want to share anything, Helen? Because you felt like that. Oh, I don't know if they're mine or not.
Yeah, so some of them resonated, but I still don't understand why I got security. Like that still does not resonate in any way, but it was one of my 5.
Yeah.
And like Natalie had said before, it's often quite good to do it at different times. So say if you have the chance to do it like at work and just see how your responses change a little bit.
Yeah, because you'll kind of be wearing different masks and actually different things might be resonant for you, but it's about the common theme, the common thread with some of this stuff that's showing up kind of in multiple kind of environments, because actually it's about bringing your whole self to every environment, but actually we've learned to kind of disconnect and only share certain parts of ourselves in certain environments, haven't we, over time? So it would be great. What I've said to Lizzie is you'll almost come to that session with your 5 and we can start to then understand the feeling around those. So what I'm really, really big on is I'm not interested in the words at all, actually. I'm interested in how are you going to show me you've honored that, or what does that look like? So if Gemma has a value of peace, I'm not actually interested in the word peace, because actually we could all have a value of peace and it'd look completely different. But it's about, okay, well, how do you tap into peace? How do you access peace every single day? Because that would be different. And that actually leads you to the behavior. So you can see how the value leads you to the change in behavior rather than getting too stuck on the word. So Catherine, with adventure, for example, do you want to share a bit about how that was showing up for you?
I can't really remember, except that I know that so I've always had bits and pieces. So I quite like open water swimming. I've been on long walks, but in the time when we were in lockdown, I'd found this thing called street tag, which you might know about if you've got children in schools. But I am addicted. And it certainly brings in the adventure, because it certainly keeps me focused. I've got to find houses that are worth 200 points, and somehow at the moment it's working. I don't understand myself sometimes, but I'm really enjoying it.
But remind me of that word though that you summed up with your childhood essence.
My childhood essence.
It was imagination.
Freedom and
yeah.
Joy.
So
joy. I'm certainly getting joy weirdly out of a street tag app. I often wonder if people see me with my phone grabbing these little yellow dots. Anyway.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? You know, and I think that's where as well, I think the whole concept of well-being is so cliched, because actually people think if you're into well-being, you have to have Lululemon leggings, you have to have a yoga mat that's over £100, and you have to sit calmly and just look really pretty. And actually well-being is really messy, and it's really like imperfect, and it's actually, for some people, it's about, I don't know, doing something that doesn't look calm or peaceful, because actually that's the way they engage with that holistic sense of well-being. So there's almost like a redefinition process that comes with all of this, of redefining your own words and your own versions of those words as well. But what you're going to get to is to a point where actually, you know, with each value, what it feels like. So you can get to the end of the day and be like, did I feel like that was present or not? But also how you honor it in terms of action and behavior, but also most importantly, what conflicts it. Because actually, the issue is trying to weed out the stuff that conflicts your values, because there'll be stuff, people, projects, things that are not in alignment with your values. And actually, that's often where this work starts, in terms of you getting really clear about, actually, there's some stuff that's not in alignment here. And now I know why it doesn't feel good. So there might be that friend, I always use that friend that you go and see for coffee once a month that has a value of, that you have a value of forgiveness and they hold grudges. And you leave that coffee date and you feel drained every time. And you're like, why? Why do I go again? Or why do I, what's off, feeling off there? But there's a conflict of a value being conflicted directly, but you've not consciously been able to link the two together. Does that make sense? So there's kind of like the conflict, there's the honoring, which kind of gives you the yes and the no in any moment, right? So if there's a question or a decision to be made, you can kind of map it back to a value and get the answer. So actually is the roadmap, it kind of is the handbook that we need to kind of move forward. Initially it will be, you'll get, your intuition will get stronger and stronger, that you won't need to map everything like that. But initially it's like the kind of like, don't know, it's just the toolbox, the handbook to kind of like give you a bit of guidance that gets you paddling upstream in the right direction rather than not having an oar and just floating. So they're a real gift is what I'd say. And I always, Laura, if you speak to anyone from the last cohort, and actually do speak to your buddies about this, honestly, you will wear your values like your badge of honor by the end. The first time I did them, I met people on a dog walk in the park, and actually like, I nearly at one point said, my name's Natalie, and told them my values, because they were so important to me that they were just like screaming outside, because it's like you have to communicate them. Honestly, Kelly will say, Laura knows Kelly quite well from the last cohort, she started just telling everyone about her values at work. Like every conversation she was having with anyone was about her values, because it's so fundamental. So, you know, like it's a really big invitation for these to just really ground you, keep you honored, and keep you kind of safe in who you're becoming. So it's a really nice place to start. But like I say, ask your inner child, ask that perspective of that curious, imaginative, adventurous child to like dive into some of this as well, because we want to take all of ourselves on the journey. I'm very aware I've spoken a lot in the last 15 minutes. Yeah. How does that land? Does anyone want to share anything that might be a value that is just cropped up there that people think, oh, actually, I think that might be something that I want to explore more? Because some of you will probably know from like a place of intuition already. Gemma, I'm going to ask you, because I feel like you have something to say, and I don't know why.
I think, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because it makes me feel uncomfortable saying it, because I avoid it because it's more comfortable to sit where I'm comfortable. So one of my values is independence. Mm-hmm. I avoid independence because sitting in people pleasing is where I'm comfortable. Independence is my north uncomfortable zone. But it's something that, and funnily enough, I've done this values quiz a while ago, and I've got the screensaver on my phone, and one of them that came up was growth, and that word makes me scared. But I always get told by loads of people in my life, you're meant to be a leader, you're meant to do this, and I'm like, no, I don't want to lead anybody. Why does anyone want to listen to me? Like, I really back away from it, but I get told time and time again, like, you need to lead. And I'm like, oh,
I see that in you as well. And I think,
oh God, here we go.
No, but I don't, but it's not, you know, it's about, for you, it's about, you know, actually, I mean, it might just be not the right time yet, right? Maybe that's something that you're going to share in time, but actually you need the right container. And for me, well-being is that thing you're passionate about. So maybe you know, this will be part of understanding, you know, how you're going to be that leader. But how can you lead if you're not connected to your who, or you don't know what is important to you? We skip that step, don't we, with the Simon Sinek finding your why. It's like we can't find our why without the who. It starts from the who, and then everything else follows. So maybe that's what this bit's about.
Yeah, exactly. And just, you know, not suppressing that inner voice, because that, you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And you always reflect back and think, bloody hell, it was telling me and I just ignored it again. So, you know, eventually that voice does get louder, and you can't ignore.
It does get
so
louder.
Growth and independence keep on popping in, so that I have to follow it with bravery and courage.
Bravery. Oh, I love that. Amazing. Anyone else want to share anything in terms of some values they think kind of might be might be kind of prevalent, anything that's cropped up. And don't worry if not, because like I say, you're going to be diving, you'll have a few weeks for this too, which is going to be great because you'll have a bit of space to finish off any letter, like anything you've not finished from the last week. But actually this is, for me, I say it about every part of the course. I say every part is my favorite, but this is actually my favorite bit of the course because it's just so simple, right? Like if we think about that, we're like, oh my God, it is so simple. And that's sometimes what we need to start the journey, something that's kind of logically simple, that then allows us to build the intuition, which can be a bit harder initially to tap into. This is quite like a logical way to look at some of this work. Tor, Georgina, Laura, anyone want to share?
I was just going to say, you don't really learn, like I've never really done this stuff, so this is really interesting for me, but you don't really like have the opportunity to do it at school or college or university. I don't know, unless you're doing maybe a specific degree or whatever, but you never get that chance or that time to sort of sit there and go, oh, what are my values? So I'm going to do the quiz when this is finished and find out. Yeah,
it's really interesting though, isn't it? Because there's probably a reason why we don't get asked, and it's because there's always another agenda. There's always something else we're being led to kind of believe, right? So actually we don't get that question asked, who are you before the world told you who to be. Like when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, like everything in my body was like, yes. But we don't get asked because actually we're meant to follow. We're meant to kind of take on other values and then live our life by them, not the other way around. So, I think there's a statistic that says like 79% of people have never thought about their personal values. Like,
that's me. That's one of me.
That's what I mean. How normal is that? But also how like crazy is that as well?
Yeah, totally crazy.
I think like Georgina was saying last week as well, with I think women as well aren't asked that question a lot of the time, because a woman who knows their values is a very powerful woman. Because it leads into everything. You lead with boundaries, what you will and you will not accept. And there's the patriarchy knew what they were doing is all I will say on that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? And I think this is really interesting as well when you then go into like looking for a new job or something, or looking for a new life partner or something like that, because actually you realize you get to choose. And actually then you get to understand, like, does that job deserve me? Because actually I have so much value to offer. But we don't go into situations like that. We go into situations being like, am I enough? Do I fit in? Is there room for me? It's like, it's a really interesting flip of perspective there. So yeah, a super invitation to get kind of deep dive into this, because this is honestly, we'll ground you in all of the other stuff we do. We'll come back to this constantly, which is why I know we start Childhood Essence softly, but this is where the chunk of the next 2-3 weeks will stay. Anything that anyone wants to add? I'm just aware of time. I could literally go on all day with this topic, so you have to stop me. But yeah, anything, comms wise, homework wise, kind of partner buddy system wise that anyone wants to check in on. I will be around. I'm just going to not be obviously on the calls, because on your calls it's going to be about 4 a.m. in Bali. So I'd love to be there, but I wouldn't really be any use to you whatsoever. But I'm going to watch them all back, and I'm obviously going to be around on Slack and messaging tools to be able to like dip in and support. But actually, Liz, it's also nice for Lizzie to be able to have her own cohort for the first time. She's going to add a completely different perspective to this and a really different energy. She's an embodiment expert. So like when it comes to the second module around intuition and like energy work, that's her baby. Whereas like I'm very strong on the mind level. She's really strong on the body level integration. So actually you're going to get a really different perspective there from her. So really use that. And I think when you're getting into kind of the meditations and stuff, she'll be able to really support you find that kind of this almost like deeper knowing and intuition and build that. And more Tor knows that we're trying to bring different people in to deliver these cohorts. So you get a bit of different types of people, because sometimes you need a little bit of different styles to kind of unlock some of the magic within you. That's what it's all about. Yeah, any questions for me?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm speaking for me and Laura right now, but I think we would definitely like having a group meetup where we can bring the fur babies.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely do that. If you guys are happy, why don't you guys create a Tor? I'll put you're the most organized person. put you in charge of a WhatsApp group, why don't you get something created? And actually, even though Lizzie's in Shropshire, she might be able to come down, but get something in the diary for the next few weeks, and do that as much as you want, because actually that's where some of those deep connections happen, and actually that's what it's all about. So if everyone kind of says yes or no to the WhatsApp group, you know, you can always mute it. I know they get a little bit intense sometimes, but that's where you'll get the value, being immersed in this.
Well, obviously I have a cockapoo as a known therapy dog. So, you know, if anybody wants any cuddles, he's hair free. Honestly, I shall put him into our
You're not going to
group.
be able to have any time with your own dog, because it'll be like booked out for the rest of the year.
Yeah. That's fine. No, I'm joking. Stay
Oh.
away.
So if you wanna drop your mobile numbers into the Slack channel, then Tor can get something
I'll
set
get
up.
that.
Set up,
I was
please.
going to say, I haven't managed the whole Slack thing. I feel a bit.
That's okay. I'll send you another link
Generationally
to it, Catherine,
challenged.
over email, and then you can
Okay.
literally go straight through to it. But what I'd say with Slack is have it on your phone, because it can be quite hard to
I
like.
did download the thingy.
Yeah, weird. It should. I think you just have to make sure your notifications are turned on for it, so that you get notified when there's a message. 'Cause if you go in, you sometimes realize that's what sometimes happens to me if my notifications aren't turned on.
Is that how people are communicating? Because I feel like I dropped off my.
Yeah,
radar.
it's different for every cohort. So we kind of agree this, like depending on what we need throughout. But we start with Slack, and then it tends to kind of be, you know, led by the group really. But yeah, Slack, and it seems like some of this will be on WhatsApp for you guys. And like I say, it would be great
Do WhatsApp.
if Lizzie's involved in that as well. Tor.
Catherine, yeah, if I put together a WhatsApp group, what I can do is I'll send you some details on Slack separately, and then just sort of show you where the notifications is, because I had the same thing. So it's probably that. So we can pick that up, and I can give you a little bit of help there.
Can you tell that Tor, for her day job, is a virtual assistant / organizer, because she is doing it right now. This is her
Need
job.
some organising.
You make me blush, Natalie. Oh.
She's basically just it's going to be amazing. The new magical support that Tor's going to be helping me with is going to be amazing.
I only just figured out how to send a message earlier though. I was like, how are people sending these messages? Because they'd come up and I didn't figure out how to, and then I realized, I was like, I thought I was quite techie, but obviously not.
I think as well, because me and Lizzie have used it 3-4 times now. We forget, because for us it's normal, but almost like we need to treat everyone as a beginner, don't we? And actually go through
Like a granny.
like and just, you know, and find something that works, because actually not some cohorts haven't used Slack at all and they found another way. So again, like co-create what feels right for the group, and actually that's where, you know, we'll kind of provide this context in the way that you need it. Really, it's all about shaping it to your needs. But yeah, the more you kind of have that line of communication, the better.
Yeah,
Are you a Virgo?
Gemma, I am a Virgo.
There you go, Gemma.
A fellow Virgo here, Tor. I can feel the Virgo vibes.
I'm Virgo as well.
Oh,
Very organised.
I'm the opposite of a Virgo. Well, not the opposite. Of a
Pisces.
Virgo.
Are you a Pisces?
No,
What are
I'm
you?
Taurus.
I'm
Love
a
you
Taurus.
guys, grounded.
Wow.
Stubborn.
Very stubborn, very stubborn, very driven, very passionate, but sometimes I can get a bit lost in, you know, kind of which Tor's finding out. I can be like, we're going over here, we're going to Brighton, and then people are like, what are we doing in Brighton? That's the difference. I'm like, we're going, the movement is going, but then I'm not there for the detail. Okay, guys, right, I'm going to let you love and leave you, because everyone probably needs to eat and just chill. But yeah, looking forward to hearing how the rest of your journey goes. Please don't be strangers. I'm going to be linked in through Lizzie and Tor in terms of how it's all going, and yeah, I just can't wait to hear how it all lands for you, really, because like I say, this is the last time this is going through in the old format of 12 weeks. We're going to be repositioning it into three courses, mini courses, Unlearn, Remember, and Become. So it'll be really, really cool just to kind of see how that lands and get that feedback for the final time as well, because yeah, it just means so much that there's another beautiful 7 people going through it. It's awesome. So yeah, very grateful for you all, and yeah, just thank you for bringing your whole selves to these calls, because without that, it would be very hard for us.
Have an amazing time in Bali.
Thank you. I'm gonna hopefully learn to be Zen. We'll see.
Yeah.
I
Not
look
jealous
forward to
at
doing
all.
aerial yoga with you when I get back. We'll have some kind of aerial yoga celebration when I'm back in June or July. That'll be amazing.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
Sounds
See
like I
you.
might break something.
Yeah. You won't. Everyone says that, and it's honestly like it's the most childlike. It's a great way to tap into childhood essence too, because like it's just playful, and we never get to do those things. So aerial yoga for me is like I'm going to train in it, I think, after my yoga. And I think that'll be what I specialize in, aerial, because there's something quite magical about aerial that weaves into the journey within. So you can see how all these ideas are starting to brew in my mind. So lots to look forward to.
Absolutely.
All
Good
right,
to see
guys.
everyone as well.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.